This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya, from the RUTO'S School of Government. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning. But we also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today, the 16th of June, 2022. And I'm 2M.
I'm Serbia.
And I am AX. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, fall of Sakaja. In the Standard, the 1 million votes that could threaten poll. In the Star, how Jubilee plotted downfall of Sakaja. In the People Daily, state budget cuts hit Ruto. 2M, why don't you get us started?
Absolutely. Now, we have in the recent past hypothesized that we will have a runoff this August. This hypothesis was informed by the possibility of Kalonzo running alone.
True.
If Kalonzo ran alone, we would have had a runoff.
Yes.
But because Kalonzo got a visitation from God and agreed to support Raila, the possibility of a runoff was vacated. So we thought. Today, I'd like to entertain the thought that there's still the possibility of a runoff in August. Not possibility, but probability. Probability lies in the realm of math. Possibility lies in the realm of faith.
Yes.
We want to smoke that stuff and hypothesize that Mr. Bangi himself, Professor Wajakoya, will force a runoff this August. Here is how. If Raila and Ruto have a dead heat race in August, each with a more or less equal number of votes, Wajakoya will ensure that no one gets past the 50% plus one threshold. This means that even with less than 10,000 votes, Wajakoya can force a runoff. Yes, you heard me right, 10,000 votes. In 2013, President Uhuru Kenyatta crossed the 50% plus one threshold with only 8,000 votes. This means that if there was a Wajakoya in 2013 who got 8,000 votes, the 2013 presidential election would have gone to a runoff. Put differently, Wajakoya may have a statistical chance of forcing a runoff. But let's also entertain the crazy possibility, not probability, of Wajakoya winning the presidential election. And my premise here is that history has taught us that the trouble with election jokes is they get elected. In Ukraine, they elected a comedian called Zelensky. In 2016, America elected a reality TV man called Donald Trump.
Yes.
In 1881, Hollywood actor Ronald Reagan became the 40th American president. In Madagascar, they elected a DJ as president. Question is, what are the chances we could elect a Bangi man called Wajakoya as a president? It would be a stretch. But the crazy thing is, why am I even thinking about Wajakoya?
Oh my goodness. Maybe it will be too close to call. Anyway. When things fall apart, the center can no longer hold. This can be confirmed by the debacles we have witnessed this week in the Tugege kingdom. But first, let me tell you a story. It involves the largest Ponzi scheme in history and a man who stole $65 billion. His name was Barney Madoff, a cunning fellow just like Chief Hustler himself. Now, Barney didn't simply wake up and dupe people of their hard-earned money. In fact, he was an active member of the finance industry and even a high-ranking board member at that. Barney's scheme involved offering huge returns on investments that he would apparently get from trading in stocks. He convinced thousands of investors to hand over their savings, falsely promising consistent profits in return. What people didn't know all along is that he will take their money and deposit it into a bank account that he used to pay other existing clients who wanted to cash out. And while he did this, he encouraged these investors to stay on in the scheme and recruit more people so they can reap these insane profits together. Unfortunately, something failed to add up. Investigators discovered his books were cooked. His gig was up and it all came crashing down. Barney Madoff became a guest of the state with 150 years to serve at the ripe age of 71. What is my point here? UDA is just another Ponzi scheme.
Oh, yes.
Allow me to break it down for you.
Yeah.
Like the Barney Madoff Ponzi scheme, UDA's messaging and allure has been clever, and for some, too sweet to resist. It has been packaged to be a solution to all our problems. In essence, UDA's agenda is populist.
Amen.
Hustlers have been promised 50 billion hustler fund, even though Ruto doesn't have a criteria to know who the hustlers are. Women have been promised 50% of cabinet, even if it's quite clear Kenya Kwisha's alliance and platform is anti-women. I mean, look at the joint presidential ticket itself and the Kenya Kwanza coalition lineup. And get this, judges who are not promoted because of corruption allegations will be cleared and then promoted. Ridiculous. But the Ruto Ponzi scheme is not working. Just like any Ponzi scheme, it is not sustainable.
Right.
Cracks have begun to emerge. A Ruto government is a failed utopian dream. And this is making UDA members desperate for any elective position to at least procure some job security for themselves. This is why there have been brawls and infighting in the UDA camp. 2 days ago in Western, it was all chaos when Poni Halwale and Cleopas Malala resorted to firing salvos at each other, though they are in the same coalition. In Kiambu, it was Wamatangi and Kabogo who are in a bitter confrontation and even crashed into each other's cars. In Nairobi, Sakaja is embroiled in a fake degree tussle, while other nondescript UDA members are on tea dates and lunch dates with Azimio members. In short, Ruto's people no longer believe in the returns he's offering. There is nothing waiting for hustlers at the other end.
Yes.
Not a government, nor those reforms he has promised them in his manifesto. That is why when he promised Wetangula a speaker seat, Wetangula didn't believe him and is out campaigning to retain his senator seat. We can contrast this to how Raila takes care of his people in Azimio. This is why seasoned politicians like Peter Munya, Sabina Chege, and even Charity Ngilu are not even vying for any seat. This is because they know Baba will take care of their interests as he will form the next government. And in Baba's new government, they are guaranteed prime positions. What is my point here? UDA is nothing but a Ponzi scheme that is collapsing right before our very own eyes. And UDA members are cashing out, but not all is lost, at least not for Baba. Every defection is a win for him, even if they do not join Azimio, because every defection tells voters that they should not vote for Ruto. If their leaders do not believe Ruto, why should they vote us?
Indeed. Wow. Okay. So, in the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene teaches us that to seize and hold on to power, you must play to people's fantasies. This is because life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. And clearly, this is a lesson that William Ruto has heeded. Everywhere he goes, he promises the world to those that might vote for him.
Correct.
He promises to reduce the cost of living and the price of fuel. He promised to implement the 2/3 gender principle in 100 days, when 2 parliaments failed to do it in 10 years. And perhaps most importantly, he has promised to change the entire way our economy works, a Herculean task. But with every word uttered, Ruto merely lengthens the noose with which he will hang himself, should he become our next president, of course. This is because Ruto is making promises without context and to a desperate people. Ruto is doing 2 things. First, he is making promises without fully understanding what it takes to achieve them. And second, he is writing a social contract with his voters. And he has forgotten that when social contracts fail, revolutions occur.
Definitely.
Let me address the first. That is making promises without fully addressing what it takes to achieve them, despite over 30 years in government. With Baba, we know where the money will finance his 6K program. We know where it will come from. It'll come from prosecuting corruption. He has told us as much. But when Ruto tells us that he wants to spend 80 billion shillings in the first 100 days of his administration, he hasn't told us where this money is coming from. So what happens when he cannot meet his promises? This takes me to my second point.
Right.
Every time Ruto utters a promise, he is writing a social contract with his voters, even if he refuses to provide them with a manifesto until the very last minute. A social contract is a real or hypothetical agreement within a state regarding the rights and responsibilities of the state and its citizens. It works like this. The government promises to respect and uphold our natural rights and develop country. In exchange, the citizens agree to be governed.
Right.
But what happens when a government cannot live up to its promises? Revolution. Especially when this promise is made to the hustlers, those with little to lose.
Correct.
This is what happened in France in the 18th century, when the people rebelled against King Louis XVI because he failed to live up to the promises he made. And again in Russia, when Tsar Nicholas II broke his promises in the 20th century. These are the consequences of making promises you cannot keep, either because you do not wish to, as with Tsar Nicholas II, II, or because you cannot, as with King Louis XVI.
Right.
And because Ruto is running a campaign of populism, he has gathered some of the most vocal and most desperate voters around him. Voters who have spent the last 2 years squeezed by COVID and cannot take it anymore. Voters who will not hesitate to make their displeasure known.
Right.
Put simply, the consequences for your rampant promise-making, Mr. Ruto, is country. The only question is, do you care enough about country to do something about it? All right.
You think his answer will be yes?
Maybe. Maybe. All right, just in case you missed the headlines, I will repeat them for you once more. In the Daily Nation, the fall of Sakaja. The Standard, the 1 million votes that could threaten poll. The Star, how Jubilee plotted downfall of Sakaja. And the People Daily, the state budget cuts hit Ruto. Now, as you know, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge our headlines. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, thoughtful or just plain lazy? What do you guys think?
Daily Nation.
Daily Nation?
Yeah,
Daily Nation automatically?
All eyes on Sakaja. Yeah,
All
the fall of
right,
Sakaja,
there
yeah.
you have it. Our winning headline today is the Daily Nation. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we are also on your TV screens. You can find us on Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. And to end, I will leave you with this quote from Stephen Richards: "Promises are only as strong as the person who gives them." Please remember that as we go into voting. Bye-bye.
God bless.